dots, and this is going to be as well part of an article that I'm going to write on one of the Saturday articles. And Dr. Keith actually just released his book yesterday on Amazon, Leadership, Emergency Leadership. Maybe you wanted to share a bit on just what you released. Do you have a copy there? Wow, okay. There you go. So I'm actually going to put as well a link into the chat. Just keep in mind here for anyone who wanted to see. Also, if you are out there, if you wanted to share any or ask anything, please use the chat here on the live stream. It's the second time I'm using the Substack live stream. I'm still getting used to that. I can see there are like a couple of people around. And very good. So this is based to be around, say, 1 hour conversation, not really something that is a strict kind of an interview. Is more a conversation between us, but there's a kind of a structure in that, so people will get a value as well. And maybe you can start from the book, Dr. Keith, in terms what you have released, and you wanted to share, what is the book about, and what made you do release, and maybe like why
Yeah.
leadership as well is so important to you.
Well, I think the reason I wrote it is because I've been working on, just like you, I went to college and I didn't get a PhD like you, but I got a doctorate. But one of the things I had to do was things from I think the famous word is a paradigm, okay, different to the one that I've been operating from. The thing that was bothering me is that there were so many things that I'd ignored about myself in the pursuit of leadership. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we discussed it at length. One of the things was things like the non-obvious, okay, the glimpses, the felt sense, the pre-verbal, the precognitive, okay. And there was obviously somewhere in my own development as a human being that I could never be hard on myself, but I just knew that I knew, almost like before I. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That
Um,
pre-verbal knowledge in a way, right?
yeah, I kind of knew. Okay. And I'd had a history of running businesses. And I always remember I was sitting across the table from some people, and they were kind of looking at me with this very puzzled look. Because I was just saying, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah.
And, oh, man, you can't believe the stuff that came with it. Okay. So somewhere in that mix, there was me letting go of me and overextending myself into other people's lives and saying, this is not possible. Okay. However, I managed to get my way, right? And it became, what was not possible became possible.
Okay? Yeah.
So if I look at all the successes, and you know what life's like, there's the high points and there's the low points, and there's the high points and then the low points. And I found that when I was truly listening to myself, okay, and I was enjoying what I was doing, okay, like really enjoying it. I was energized. I was never exhausted, okay. And if I was, it was like a buzz. It was because I was in it. I was living it, right? And I always thought, and then you go off to college and to uni, and you get your master's degrees and your PhDs, and the world becomes a little more complicated, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the kind of essence of it, okay. So I started looking at the whole evolution of myself as a business leader, right? Having run some pretty big businesses, okay, and where I thought that I had it, and then where I thought I'd lost it.
Right.
Yeah. And where I lost it is, and I'm happy to report that I did lose it, okay, is there was this constant spinning back into a thing called the room, okay. What was happening in the room, okay? What was it that I wasn't saying, right? If I was actually, truth, as you know, is a pretty subjective thing, but if I wasn't saying it as it is and what the truth was, and it was a fully integrated me, with my truth. And I kind of mapped that. And it was quite interesting and then I think you and I met, 3 years ago or so. And I've been running my workshops, which, as far as I'm concerned, are, a body of work and a collection of lived experience, instead of it being another framework.
Yes, and I like to go a bit. Hi, Abigail. Also, Abigail is joining here, and you can see perhaps the link of the new book of Keith is on Amazon. This is the UK Amazon, but I'm sure that there's other Amazons as well. The Emergent Leadership. So it just released yesterday, and you just touch base into that kind of the frameworks, like the things that in one way or the other is always bring different industries. They have different frameworks, but the spirit is kind of similar. Someone has already figured out something that's supposed to be the correct way of doing things, and then others will follow that kind of a framework, right? And I like to understand, and in particular with the leadership model, because with the leadership industry in particular, it's like there's a lot of models, like tons of books that each one refer to the kind of the right way of having a leadership, and tons of models, and we discussed a bit of that. I've been there for some time before I left altogether into the other topics. What is your kind of experience in terms of dealing with all these kind of models and frameworks, and people trying to make kind of leadership in this type of linear
You,
thinking? Or
you know what? I have to be very honest here, and I'm going to try and not curse, right? Because this is obviously a jerk. But I've been watching what's been happening on LinkedIn, okay? And I've been watching what's been happening out there, okay? And I've been asking myself questions. I said, every time I get everybody's got a model, okay? But I don't see the person in that model. I don't see the happening, the aliveness in it, right? It's almost like you fill in this box. Once you've got that box filled in, moving over, and when that box is full, there's nothing. It doesn't have. It's kind of sequential and it's linear, and it misses so much. Okay, whereas I don't do that. So when I do work with clients, and I have some clients on board, I don't go there. Okay, what I'm finding is these guys are talking about life itself, not leadership. Yeah, yeah. So as far as they're concerned, life is the pointer. Okay, all right, in the room. Okay, and when they feel that they really are in the room, they are enjoying the moment, and they can quite easily speak to their truth. Okay, and they come out of them pretty energized. When they go into these models and they're up against these frameworks, the true creative side is being shut down because they have to fit it in. Okay. When in fact creative juices are not running. Okay. So because of the world that we come from, you've got to be able to say it in a way that the other person will approve it. Okay.
Right.
When in fact all they're doing is they're kicking the can down the road. It never really gets said until you go from rupture to crisis. Okay.
Right.
Big business. Now we've got a problem. But hang on, if we knew that problem was coming at the point that we were facing disruption or the rupture, we could have done something about it. Okay. So it creates a new language. Okay. All right. So it's not linear. It doesn't mean that it doesn't still mean good business principles, like, 1 and 1 is 2, and,
right.
It doesn't mean that. It just means that you're losing so much of that person, right, in the room. And I said, well, I ain't going to do that. I'm going to write a book that says that we're emerging all the time. We're coming through all the time. And if we get that rhythm and that cadence right, then we're moving in the right, then we're moving in well with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other aspect that I also notice is in these leadership models, there's a lot of things that comes with a so-called psychometrics, try to allocate people within certain, archetypes and this kind of based on also on the Carl Jung. And they had a time for that, right? But a lot of these things that I feel is like legacy coming either from the Maslow hierarchy, that he never spoke about the pyramid in any way, and the Carl Jung archetypes, that they had a kind of their usefulness at the time, but things have evolved more into the dynamic, into more kind of that fluid. That's my perception of what you're saying, right?
Well, if you more than perception, it's absolutely true. Okay. So I've worked through. So when I went to do my doctorate, okay, I didn't want a framework.
Mm.
I wanted an experience. Okay. And I wanted it to evolve me, them, and us. Okay. And they were effective because the research period was, some pretty big companies, right? And the leadership teams and the leaders in those teams thoroughly enjoyed the stuff. Some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them says, "Do you know about the psychometric?" And I just got sick. I said, "Oh, here we go. Here we go again." Okay. And to this day, there are many, many of the big corporates out there that will not hire you unless you've gone through a series of psychometrics.
Right.
Yeah. Which are completely out of date by the time you finish them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've written it. So then they give you the snapshot of who you are. Okay?
Yeah, that second, that moment, that will be different on the moment after, right?
So you're this person now, okay? And then in 6 months' time they'll do it again, and then that's this person, okay?
Yeah.
Instead of the fully integrated self, which says, "Well, I am this, okay? This is how I see it. This is what I feel. I get a felt sense, and now I move into that space, okay?" So when I wrote this particular book, I looked at the origins of that for me, not as a psychometric.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, put the word psychometric, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the Kindle version, you won't find it.
Right.
You won't find type. You won't find personality type. But you'll find a whole lot of language that came out of those prompts that you and I worked on, the ones that you gave me.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Yeah. But I mean, that created a brilliant language. In fact, the truth be told, it wrote this book. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to get there.
Yeah. So what I did is I actually, the AI stuff that you've been working with us with, okay. Whenever they got into my inbox, right,
Mm-hmm.
I got really excited. Okay? So yeah, and off I went, okay,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
reams of material.
Yes.
Okay? I've got articles, I've got journals that I've been writing going back 5 years, okay, and I've got all these new projects. So I actually didn't listen to you. I said to whatever chat does with projects, I just said, you can draw it from any source, right? Anywhere, right? Articles, journals, this particular chat, that chat, everything, okay? And slowly but surely, it started bringing in these. So one of the things that I did is because I'm great about the individual, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Their real potential that actually lies inside that individual. I then decided the best thing that I could do was to go and take those journals, okay, and upload them, right? Because they're very personal, they're very private, okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then combine them with the actual business that I'm doing with companies. Like, I'm even the most controversial strategist in the world. Like, you have no idea, okay. I just laugh at the word. It just means nothing to me, okay. So what I did is I actually just moved into that space, and I started using your prompts, and they started showing me a different language.
Yes.
And then, strangely enough, from all those prompts, one day, chat, I don't know who gives them the prompt, okay? I said, why don't you write a book?
Yeah.
So I said, I'll do it, okay? And you're not going to, but based on the information that I'd, similar, it took 5 years of information, okay?
And that's the thing, probably you want to understand more, because obviously you have done the PhD, and I'm understanding you had like Bob Keegan, right? The famous person as it was was supervisor, or was part of your
He was both.
dissertation?
He was my program director,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And he was also my supervisor. He didn't supervise me all the time. I had him in supervision, I think, once or twice, maybe thrice in the 3 years that I was there. But I got on very well with him, okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I understood him, okay?
Yeah, so maybe you can like share at the time where you were doing the PhD, and also like in more, not fully academic, because it was more a practitioner. So I
Yeah,
understand there was a bit more freedom, but like to understand what was even like that kind of frameworks that I'm sure there were some of them that was kind of still preventing you to kind of really come up with your own truth in a way.
exactly. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The thing about him was that, first, he is the most amenable, affable, approachable person on God's planet, okay? You can really get on with him, okay? The second thing is that he's one of those unspoken brilliant minds.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the fact that he was Harvard's head of adult professional development,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't. You didn't get the impression that he was 8 foot tall and wore, smoked a meerschaum pipe and wore tweeds. He was just like that kind of guy, okay, that you could talk to. And I remember my first supervision session with him. I went off on a bender, yeah, typical. And I thought, oh, I shouldn't be talking like that in front of such an esteemed professor. And he's actually a PhD in psychotherapy. Okay?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, he was sitting with a big smile on his face, right? Because I was getting into the heat, right? I was getting into the room, and I was like really, like going for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like a sailor, and he just sat there with a big smile on his face. Okay, I said, "Oh, what on God's earth is this man thinking?" Okay. But I got to know his work. But he's come up with a psychology. He calls it constructive development, right? And I spent 6 in the whole immune. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But effectively, he says the way we're conditioned, we're almost kind of working against ourselves all the time. Are you with me? It's the conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're kind of working against each other. And because we go about approval. Otherwise, you don't get the job. Okay. What I did then is I said, but that's always been my problem. And I'm not in agreement with putting authority come out in the most. And he said, I get you completely. That's the way you make meaning.
Correct. Yes, that's the knowledge
Yeah.
is the most confusing thing to start with.
Yeah. He said, that's the way you make meaning of it. And I thought, I'll never get through this doctorate ever, because it's like, right. But fortunately, the other 2 supervisors that were involved with me at the time had been inducted by him, okay, into the same methodology, okay. So it's more a way of actually constructing experience, right?
Right.
So it's the idea is that you're looking in on yourself, okay, and you can say to myself, well, that had me then. I was caught by that, okay. But if it didn't have me, right, and I had it the way I wanted it, right, then how would that look? So it gave me the ability to say, yeah, no, I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. Okay. And then I started learning to become a professional doodler. You don't know what a doodle is?
Yeah, like the when you're going to draw the things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, a blank piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just drew these amazing diagrams. Okay.
Right.
And then I also got into the world of constellating, right? Where how power works, right? And how people connect and actually can work with each other. Okay. Even if it's messy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And over that period, this is now going back to 2011. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
then 5 companies. Okay. I actually took, okay, because the the leaders actually had to have a good look at themselves. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're not prepared to go there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly curious. They wanted to go there. Okay. And they've all done extremely well. Okay. They've done well because it's iterative, it's revisiting, and it's always about where I am with them, where they are with themselves and with their teams. And I don't even think it's come up with a model. It's come up with a way of being alive in the room, right,
Mm-hmm.
where you can actually integrate just about anything. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so it's probably more iterative, like
Mm-hmm.
circling.
Yeah, maybe a spiral in a way, right?
Yeah, maybe a spiral, but
Yeah.
it's kind of circles back, asks the same questions again. And as I was saying earlier on, I spoke to a friend of mine who's a very, very wealthy guy, and a very pleasant guy. And I said, well, with all your wealth, don't you ever stress about anything? He says, you have no idea. I said, it doesn't stop there. I said, there's still other stuff that turns up. Okay. So, it gives life that quality, that juice, that vitality. And of course, when you're working with uncertainty, it's just absolutely brilliant because when you're all in the same room, okay, you
Yes.
can any angle you like. You can just get in there, embrace it, enjoy it, see it as an opportunity. So I do kind of like it, but I think the way the book's turned out is absolutely bloody brilliant.
But back in the time when you were doing the PhD and obviously you have done your dissertation and the writing at the time, I just would like to compare what was the writing for you, not just necessarily the writing in the act of the tone and all of that, but more about you expressing your own truth in a way, and how at the time that you felt kind of a constraints or any things that were not fully developed, and obviously you're getting more and more
Uh,
experience and so on. But maybe like at the time, what was the thing that you felt like, that felt sense that was still like kind of a friction, that was still not touching into that one truth in a way, that you were there but not yet there in that kind of a felt sense back in
felt,
the
yeah, I think felt sense has always been there. Okay, but it's been conditioned not to be there.
okay, by what example? I mean, it was
Growing up in a family,
uh-huh.
uh, growing up as an adolescent. Okay, we're all, everything is now sort of being shaped in terms of preferences, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're not a child anymore. Now you're having to get, you're starting to get the pressure on you all the time. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
start deciding what it is you want to do with your job, with your life, and then you get your first job, right? And everything is just about appeasing, getting approval, and that way I actually, now probably not a bad idea to survive in the world, but there gets a point where you can actually say, there were things that I was saying in board meet where I wasn't saying things in board meetings where I needed to say what had to be said. Okay,
Mm.
and if that freedom eventually came, okay, and I'd hate to say it, my first job was to get rid of the board, right, because they'd actually put the lid on the rest of a huge organization. And when they eventually appointed me as the CEO, that's the first thing that they wanted to do. Is the guys on the ground wanted to talk to me about the frustration. Okay, so somebody facilitated the ability for them to feel and express themselves in a way that had never been offered before.
Right.
That company was facing foreclosure.
Mm-hmm.
That company is still alive today.
Right. And
Yeah.
that was in back which year was that?
Oh, that was about easily. Oh, that was in the 90s. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and then subsequently I took on another business, same story. The only guy, only only guy who took agency over this family business was me. Okay, so they had one country operating like this and another company operating like that, and I just walked in and said, "No, that's not. It's got to work like this." Okay, and I made them more money than they'd ever seen in their lives. Okay,
Right.
And I've subsequently had all kinds of other guys trying to get in my face saying, "Oh, well, they did this and they did this." I said, "How many checks did you give me? Okay, how many checks did you write out to me? And how many checks did I write out to you?" Okay, that was some stupid amount of money. Okay, and I said, "And how did you make the money?" Right. So I just asked him the how. Yeah, give me a sense of how you did it. Okay, but instead of getting sour about it, it actually gave me a freedom to challenge it. Yeah, and then I realized, hang on, because I went through a bad patch after that because they embezzled the money. Okay, and they threw me under the bus. But the fact of the matter is, when I got out of it, instead of beating up on myself, I said, "That's what felt sense does. That's what, when you really get it right, does." And you know what? I operated it like Jeff Bezos, right? Literally, how he started his business. Got in a car with an invoice book and an order book and drove out, right, to the first client and started a business.
Right.
And Bezos started it. Okay, first book.
Oh yeah. Which is not in Amazon, your book, right?
Yeah, down to the post office where he posted it himself. Okay, if that first one he sold, they had to post money to each other because the guy actually he sold the book to him, but there wasn't. I don't think the internet. It was through the post box. Okay.
Yeah. Back at the time, yeah.
I think that it landed up in some guy in Eastern Germany, and he couldn't pay for it. Right. So what he did is a lot of cash in an envelope and posted it back.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we were talking about, you also touched base on that sense of the freedom, and also someone asked here on the chat the concept of control and how to evade it, and in a way also the my perception, and maybe you can add more on that, in terms of people wanted to have these models, these frameworks, even the psychometrics and so on, is in a way, which is understandable, a sense of control in a way of what they really want to deal when it comes to true uncertainty. And the uncertainty is something also we are already starting to touch base. But it's a bit of a vague question. But what was your perception in terms of maybe either in your PhD or even after the experience of that need of people to have that sense of certainty or the control and to grab into these kind of frameworks, models, leadership, even like coaches, because I have the perception a lot of people hire coaches is not really to help them make decisions, but to more kind of a justify whatever decision they will come up. We can go a bit more on that, but maybe that sense of control versus freedom felt sense.
All right, so you've touched a sort of a raw nerve. Okay, so I'm probably the best trained coach that there is that I know. Okay, because that's what I did. I trained coaches. I was trained as a coach, then trained coach, then I went to some snotty university, right, and got a postgrad in executive and business coaching. And it's a story, okay. And I came out of it, and there were 16 people on the course, all top-notch corporate bunnies, with the pinstripe suits and and very politically correct and all very correct about trying. And I was watching it because what they did is they actually worked in like not even a triad. There were two supervisors and two coaches. Okay.
Right.
And they were kind of working in this triad. And I was looking at this story. Okay. And I thought, the one thing that I always respect one of my supervisors for saying to me, he says, just get it through the gate. Just get it through the gate. Do what they want from you and just get it through the gate. Okay. And I just remember watching this and I thought, this is absolute bloody nonsense. They were like focused on methods and techniques and just that type of questioning. A long story short, I like a conversation, as you know. Yeah, I have a conversation. Otherwise, there ain't nothing. Okay. And I went through it, and at the end of it now, you're just about to graduate, or about to be assessed.
Access, yes.
Yeah. So they've got these really smart, very, very, top 100 coaches in the world, and very expensive course. Okay, and I get the feedback. So there's like 16 sets of feedback, 17 sets of feedback. And the thing that was interesting for me was what some of the guys said. Okay, I've never thrown it away. All right, and so what some of the women said. Okay. But what was far more important is what one of the tutors, who was a woman, said to me.
Right.
She said, off the record, these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. I said, why? He said, because you are such an easy guy to talk to.
Right.
And he said, you just have really good conversations. I said, you're incredibly curious about people. Okay. I said, well, aren't you supposed to score me on this particular method or that particular method or this particular? And she said, I'm telling you something. If I had to graduate anybody on this course as a proper coach, it's you.
Okay? Right.
Because you know how to talk to people and you love listening to them. Okay. You're curious as hell about people. Okay. And that actually brings an interest to you and to them. So for me, interest is number one. The word motivation also, by the way, doesn't appear once in this book. Not once. Interest does. So for me, fulfillment isn't about a psychometric. Just really get to know the guy or the girl. Just get to know them. Okay. And be really interested in it. Okay. And then let them know who you are. And they will become very interested in you. Okay. So once you've got that, you've got the dialogue, right? Now you're having the conversation. Okay. So what they may not have said before because they were worried they were going to fail some psychometric tests. Okay. And I often used to, when I took on new jobs, the one guy who owned the company, he said, I've had these done. It was a thing called DISC. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. I think all of us did.
And he walked in and snotty little guy, comes from a wealthy family, thought he knew everything, right? And I knew he was just, been planted there with money from family and that kind of stuff. And anyway, he forced all his staff, all right, to go through a psychometric and the DISC. Okay. So very proudly, he walks into his offices one day, and I'm working in client space, and when I'm finished, he says, look, I've got all these reports for you. I said, what are they? I said, they're DISCs.
Yeah, DISCs.
I said, really? He said, yeah, I'd like you to discuss it with, the staff. I said, yeah, we'll give him. So in walks the first guy, lovely young guy, okay? And I said, about this report. And he looked at me and said, this is bullshit. I said, I know, and so do you.
Yes. But so,
and I said to him, what do you want to do with it? I said, trash it. I said, well, it's yours. So then trash it. Okay.
Right.
And then we got on. And he's moved on to be one of the top recruiters in Ireland. Okay. Yeah, but I mean, he's really good. Okay. Young guy. And I'm just wondering if I hadn't been there, what would have happened. Okay. And that's the danger of the psychometrics. There's an Enneagram, there's EQI, oh, you name it. And I think there's a thing called LDF. But everybody's got a
yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah.
The more sophisticated, but it's still kind of these different colors and kind of you have to go through the different levels, right? It's the LDF one that I was referring, the leadership one.
Leadership development profile.
It's like a one that you have it's based on the Maslow hierarchy of needs, and they have maybe 16 levels, and they kind of it feels like a video game. You have to go level 1, level 2.
This LDF This is a proper LDF. This is written as the first person felt sense of what leadership is. And for me, the key thing is what's alive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Being alive in a room, okay? In whatever way you can be, right? Points to leadership, not the other way around. Because most people will say leadership needs to be in the room. I'm saying no, life needs to be in the room in order for leadership to happen.
And I remember on my side, because obviously coming also before I become the entrepreneur, I was in a corporate, and one of the things that I start to get really, really frustrated in a way with that world, in particular on the leadership, is when I become so-called team leader and I had to go through all these kind of programs. And one of them, guess what, was the disc. Like different shapes, the same colors, these 4 different colors, and obviously coming from a person that understands finance, understands the models have huge limitations, and it was the uncertainty as well, let alone in terms of trying to describe a person character or personality with this very kind of a basic kind of a model. And I challenged the people there, and I could see they did not like the challenge. And I think the reason is very simple, is because they heard, because they are certified, they get a huge kind of is a huge industry, and you don't want to kind of go against the status quo, because it's you're going to impact a lot of people that are making a lot of money for different interests, and the companies also have a kind of an interest to have these discs and these programs, because it makes people happy, because no one really gets offended by being, say, yellow or red or blue or green, because there's always going to be the up and downs, and it's just a way to make people happy in a group, right? It really doesn't go in the dynamics into that uncertainty. But moving forward, really, because that was like the topic on the uncertainty, that was the first touch base that we met. I think it was in 2023. It was through a kind of a common connection, another professor as well on leadership, and somehow I end up in your cohorts, in your calls on the uncertainty, leading on uncertainty. Then I started to develop my own cohort to become kind of the guinea pig back then, right? That was like the very first version, and then I move on to the other one, which is the one that you already mentioned, which is allowing you to write the book, and that is having that component with AI. Now, the AI, the way that I'm using is completely different from most people are using. It's not like I'm saying others are using in the wrong way. It's just different, and is acting more kind of as a bit of a scaffolding. And it's like this concept of a rare dot that was already there even without AI, but AI is just another way to kind of try to extract your rare dots. Do you still remember when it was the first time that you had like hear about this concept and of the rare dots, in particular when you start to use that kind of the prompts, in particular how to extract the things that were in your pre-verbal, in that kind of the the intrusions or the half truths that it's there but you cannot say because you don't still have the language, and you already mentioned that you develop your own language, but before that, I mean, you still remember that
Yeah.
beginning of the experience, right?
Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. When they first came through the prompts, okay, it was like, what? Really? It's almost like I didn't know something about myself, but now I knew it, right? It's that thing. Okay, now I know it. Okay. And ever since I went through that with you, I started using it. Okay. In client space. Okay. Because you know your corporate world better than I do. Okay. You have to say something to be important and therefore earn your title and your job. Okay. And I just introduced the concept. So a lot of the stuff that I brought into those particular sessions, was stuff that was pasted from emails and articles and my own work, right? Which made it very real, okay, for me. Okay. It also made it very, very real for the guys I was working with. Okay. So when they were actually starting to meet, it actually created a completely different organizational structure, if you want to call it that. Okay. But you know how hierarchies work, big boss, little boss, mini me boss, no boss, that. It kind of flattened that immediately. Okay. And it actually completely unbundled and rebundled the whole organization, right?
Right.
Without actually making any effort. Okay. And I would actually say I was in Ireland last week talking to a really good client of mine. And I said, how are these things connected? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And he said, you mean the rare dots? I said, yeah, how are they connected? And he said, like this, like that, like this, like that. So they've completely reorganized the cadences, the rhythm and cadence of the business, right? And people at work, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he was doing well, right? His business was doing well. Let's just say he's doing weller, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because the old traditional way of doing things, that I don't know if you've heard this word scale. It's a business word. If you want to grow, you scale.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one. Another new word, okay? I don't do that. I'm arguing that you do that very differently, okay? What you do is you develop that person's felt sense of himself and his own capabilities, and you let him speak to that truth on an ongoing basis for himself and with his colleagues in the way that they work in their teams. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they were just about to make it like I think they were considering making a $2 million investment.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So hit it with, actually went through the post prompt, okay? The rare dots post prompt, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Were you going? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I do when you guys are working. I just like what everybody's working, and they're working with Nuno. I'm just moving, right? I'm just saying, and I just cut and paste and add another thing and say, right, so this is what my client wants to do, blah blah blah. Okay. And the next thing it says to me, the question was, why would he want to do that? I said, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I said, so my sense was, this has got nothing to do with scaling. That's just another buzzword. That's just another framework. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, creating people's capabilities is more that person, right, with himself, in himself, developing himself, right, to go where he wants to be, okay, and be with them in the way that he can be. So now, how do you put that down into a framework?
Well, that we so the thing is, you start to extract that rare dots, and it's coming from your pre-verbal, and you can make an analogy. It's like so-called the black swans. They're like more than the downside of the uncertainty, and the rare dots is more the creative part of the uncertainty. And you have there's no framework in there. There's no attachment to models or anything that as before. Is really coming from your felt sense, or more about what you perceive as your own truth, but you cannot really fully verbalize. And what this does is extracting that possible kind of rare dots, and then you're going to read 3 or 4, and then one of them is the one that is attracting you the most, right? There's always like this component of you, not just intellectually, because it has to also be the body that has to create that resonance. There's kind of this thing that is the curiosity and intellectual, but also like the felt sense, maybe even sometimes smile, sometimes you can have like a shaking in your body. And then we're going to kind of not necessarily try to connect them. That was like kind of the difference this time. We kind of we're going to collapse in the sense of trying to bring two of these things together, and they don't really merge in existing frameworks, and that is because they are trying to kind of uncover a hidden layer in there. There could be a wrong assumption in your industry, or things that were a hidden pain. There was like kind of that rupture element, right? And that's kind of that rupture that I wanted to maybe, from if you wanted to describe what was your own rupture from that exercise in the sense of the leadership? If you,
To be honest, the rupture was that I had discounted myself.
uh-huh.
Okay. That I'd had these glimpses in a world where, the conditioned mind said not possible. Okay. That was the one rupture. The other big rupture was, or disruption, that I'm useless at presenting and standing in front of, crowds in a suit, right? I just absolutely the worst. Okay. I just don't like it. It's not me. Yeah. And it's not about stage fright, right? I can talk. I've spoken to thousands of people. Okay. I've spoken to thousands of guys who are militants, right? And union, and been quite happy in my skin that I was talking to them, because I knew that it was just about nothing else I could say other than what had to be said. And to this day, they still, I'm quite happy with it, because it wasn't a presentation.
Right.
It was about a real issue. Okay. So for me, when we're dealing with rupture, okay. Now, I mean, if there are any academics who are ever going to listen to this, they're just going to say that guy should be thrown off the stage. Okay? He needs to be trampled underfoot big time. Okay. I don't see that as a way of life. Okay. That whole felt sense does tie in with the whole meaning making thing. Okay. So when I actually used to interview staff, I never used to interview them. Okay. So you see this poor guy sitting in there in his suit, in the receptionist's office, feeling incredibly nervous. Okay. And I'd walk out there and I said, so you're like waiting for who? No, I'm being interviewed by the CEO. I said, do you know where he is? He said, well, isn't this his office? I said, no. This is not it. And he said, you're not dressed properly. I said, well, I've done my best. I said, I'll tell you what, get rid of the suit, get rid of the tie, right? And if you'll go and sit in the boardroom, okay, which is over there, I'll fetch him for you. Okay. He said, but I can't do that. He's the CEO. I said, who? So, all right, okay. I said, well, do it anyway. Don't worry. I'll vouch for you. If something goes wrong.
Yeah.
He said, well, who are you? I said, I'm just the other guy. Okay. So I'd say to my PA, I said, get him a decent plate of sandwiches and a cup of tea and make him comfortable. Okay. And, obviously she plays the game. He goes in there. You can see the poor bugger sitting there. And I walk in and I say, the CEO. I said, has he arrived yet? I said, no. I said, come on, let's have a chat. I said, while we wait for him. Okay. And I sit there and I talked to him. I said, so tell me about yourself. How are you getting on? What do you want to do with this? And he said, no, well, I wasn't even interviewing him. And he just started chattering. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, that's actually quite a decent bloke. Okay. I like the fact that he can talk and he can engage with people. And I said, I actually remember saying to him, I said, do you like psychometrics? This is not casually. Okay?
Right. Tricky question.
Yeah, he says, I hate them. I said, isn't it cool that you can actually just ask somebody about themselves and they'll tell you? Okay. And I said, give me 5 minutes, I'll go and fetch him. Okay. That was the end of the interview. So now Lucy, who was my personal assistant, I said, would you show him into my office, please? Okay. So now he's going into the big man's office. Yeah. I didn't give a shit about being the big man or not. Okay. Anyway, walks in and I walk in after him and I sit behind my big desk, don't I? It was great meeting you. I said, I'm waiting for the CEO. I said, I've been waiting for you too. You've got the job. Okay. Done. Okay. That story went through that factory, the 3,500 people, right? Said, don't go and blow smoke up this guy's ass, because you know what? He just wants to have a good conversation. Keep you there for a long time. Yeah. that's that. So I didn't do the formal sort of,
Mhm.
and turned out to be an absolute bomb. He was interesting. He was telling me about the way he grew up, and where he grew up, and I recognized the place, and it was just a proper conversation about really get to know who the person is.
Yeah, yeah.
He got a felt sense of me. I got a felt sense of me. So those are the areas where, as things progressed, things went wrong. Because I moved out being a CEO, right, into other roles, and I did a job with a huge company, a big tire company, a company called Michelin.
Mm.
It was a horror show,
Mhm.
absolute horror show. Okay, of the worst of the worst of the worst. I should never have taken it on. Okay, and they were coming up with all kinds of leadership theories and another leadership framework, and it was like I stuck it out for 6 months, probably just because I was a bit short of cash, but it was a waste of time. And
Mhm.
I said, no. Now what needs to happen is if I want to do this work, I want to enjoy it now, and I wanted to follow um, that train of thought or that particular way of being. So it's got about 4 or 5 chapters in it. Okay, this just shows the migration of the thinking from
Right.
child to adolescent to early adult, to a more sort of self-authoring adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because on that collision of the rare dose and that rupture that you were realizing, maybe one, two, three, or more, there was like that concept of the permission to think differently.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not just like think differently, it's the permission to think differently. And
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that just like I mean, come on. You know, who kind of who what allows you to do that? I mean, in the world
right,
that we live, you can't think differently.
right.
And then you get that. I think I wrote an article on it. I think I did.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you did, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I can assure you that nobody at any of the local universities is looking for me in their halls there as a lecturer or as a professor, because going to. I'm just not going to go into that world.
Mm.
It's just too stereotypic. Um, whereas in industry and in enterprise, they love it.
Right.
They absolutely love it. They just think it's great. And you know what? Some of them are pretty bloody demanding. Right? They'll
Mhm.
say, "That was really cool. We like that stuff."
Mhm.
And yeah, I said, "That'll cost you." I said, "How much?" "Hmm."
Do you have an example maybe in your book that was like that, the permission to think differently and what becomes possible that was not possible before? Because those are the results of the prompts.
I, I,
Yes.
I think it's in here somewhere. Okay, um, but I think the epilogue has got a section there called "What Now Becomes Possible."
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
You put my glasses on, I don't have. Oh, you also have glasses.
I have glasses. Yes.
If this book has an argument, it's not that leadership needs a better model.
Mm.
Okay? It is that leadership needs more truthful ground. And your famous, the pre-verbal matters here.
Hmm.
Felt sense matters here. I kind of like the way this has been written, right? The body's early registration of reality matters here. Not as mysticism, not as an indulgence, but as one of the earliest places where truth first appears before language catches up.
Hmm.
Or, I mean, that is very profound, okay? I wonder who wrote this. Maybe you did in your sleep, okay? What now becomes possible was not possible before.
Yeah.
A different quality of room, a different quality of language, a different quality of authority, and a different quality of leadership. and perhaps most importantly, a different quality of life.
Right.
It is not a promise of perfection. It's a claim about practice. That a human being can become more capable of reality. Okay. That a room can be more capable of truth. That a practice can become more capable of consequence. So it's not all just soft, gooey stuff, That a life can become more inhabitable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is enough. More than enough. I rather like that.
Yeah. And there's that language as well, because the language of leadership, as is on kind of the specifics, what is agreed as the kind of the official, or the the considered as the that people understand what is the leadership, and they have like kind of these
Uh,
frameworks, models,
we,
and so on. But you bring on that rupture that makes what makes possible that's not possible before, and also like the permission to think differently. All of that, then it starts to come as well with a new vocabulary, a new language, right?
yeah.
And that was, you start to develop your own way, because language and thinking and feeling, they are all interconnected. So
Yep.
language in one way can limit certain ways of thinking and feeling, but also can liberate, because then you can create a new type of concepts that has a language that has a different meaning, right? And you start to develop your own language, because that was one element as well of the prompts. They are not designed just to kind of follow a kind of a step by step. It's more kind of a scaffolding you build inside, and then you start to develop your own language that is coming from within you, right? From that rare dose.
Somewhere in the book here, there was a really good piece that I loved. Okay. And I'm sure it came from the prompts. Okay. And that was about the story, is that it's not about leadership. Okay. It's about love. I mean, it's about life. Okay.
Mm,
The point is life, not
mm,
leadership.
mm.
Because the moment you pop leadership into there, what you coming up against is, all right, another model.
Yeah.
And as Abigail said there, another category, another
Mhm.
yeah. Which makes it even so. In other words, now we put up another wall, another wall, another wall, another wall, another wall, fill it in, another psychometric, and away we go. Right. I have a friend who's involved with the LDF, or I think he was a friend. I don't think I'll be a friend after he listens to this interview, but that's up to him. Okay. In the closing chapters, returns to leadership, to life itself. Okay. Leadership is not finally a role or status, but the craft of building a life, a room, and a practice capable of reality. Now, those sound easy words. Those are not easy words, man. They are not easy words. Anyway, it's quite
But they are
good.
expressed from you, right? Is Yes, they may come from some kind of prompt, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's going to be your words, because it's you also have to choose, and you have to. It's not just like kind of a copy paste. It's not like what we are talking about. So for others
Well,
who
what
understand.
you should read it, because you feature. I actually referenced you in the back, by the way, and in the
Thank
front.
you. Yes, thank you, thank you, Keith.
No, you're welcome. No, you're more than welcome. I mean, it wouldn't have happened without. Uh, I don't know how many iterations I've done. Okay, but it's
This artistic way, like I'm starting to read back again certain elements of Rick Rubin, with like this music producer, and actually what we are doing here is that kind of artistic way, is that we're not producing music, but we are producing that a different type of art, which is more on the linguistics.
I actually said somewhere here. Okay, I don't know where I've said it, but it's there. It's an art. Okay,
Mm,
it's a
yeah,
craft.
yeah.
Okay, um, I have no idea. I was cheeky enough to say I'm not writing this as a bestseller. Okay, because I'm not. I'm actually writing this from here. Okay,
Yeah,
from here through you and other practices that I've been I had in place. Look, I'm entirely. It's a terrible thing to say. I'm entirely satisfied with it. Okay. I mean, it was going to be 4 books, and it's down to 1. Okay. So I must get a copy to you, by the way. But you're going to have to send me an address, and I'll.
I'll send after. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, just do, because I believe that you should have a copy. In fact, there's 4 not for resale copies. Okay. And there's 5 of those, and there's 5 hard copies come. 1 is coming your way. Okay.
Yes, thank you. With our signature.
Well, if you want, I mean, I don't like facing the documents, Well, I'll definitely sign it.
But the book was like the result as well of what we already started to write, even on the Substack and the things that we were then sending to your clients. Because this is like also the key that I wanted to bring to the table. That language is a way, obviously, to communicate with others. But in this case, what we are doing here more is really like what we call the quiet clients. Like attracting, and you like that word of the attracting these quiet clients. And so, can you share more about that experience as well, that you started to write? And you've been writing a lot, obviously, especially also in the LinkedIn, but there was a different type of writing that is more about that element of rupture more than the resonance. And you start to send this to certain clients and you get some reaction. And it was like, can you share more about that, kind of that thing, what that led to them? And maybe kind of that part of the attracting the right people in a way.
My clients and their curiosity around my writing is like ridiculous. Okay. I was talking to one of them yesterday or the day before, and I said this. I said, you know where that comes from? And I gave him a few passages. I said, we've been talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I suppose you want a copy. He said, yeah. Will you sign
it? There you go.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing that makes this real, okay, is that it comes from practice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying practice. I'm just saying from an algorithm, right, that's been vocabularized with a prompt,
mm-hmm.
rejigged, and integrated with more and more material. And I'll tell you one thing that it did do is that the thing that it did is it gave me permission to think differently. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when I finished it, I actually had a bit of a spitting teeth part, right? Because every time I thought it would upload the ISBN number automatically and, change, certain fonts. And then I get this message from Amazon. Redo this and redo that. And eventually, okay, that's fine. We'll go with it. Okay. But when you read it, it's almost like reading, if you read your prompts, your AI prompts, okay, and the language it produces it in a language where it is essentially, while it's your prompt, okay, it's still my language, okay.
Yeah, because the input is yours. It's your unique lived experience that you are writing through. What the prompts does is like kind of extracting the things that are already in you, but you cannot fully verbalize, and it's going to do more than that. But basically the main idea.
But let me just tell you for free, okay?
Yeah.
I haven't read anything like this for a long time, and I've never created anything like this. Okay.
And there was a sense as well of, and I think you touched base a while ago, of reorganizing the things, because what we are doing here is not just kind of articulation or even like differentiate you from the others. It's also like creating what we call the paradigm. People may not like the word because it's kind of being abused somewhere else, but really what the paradigm really means is that you are having a new truth, your truth, and with that new truth, something becomes possible that was not possible before, and the things will reorganize themselves around that. That's pretty much what the paradigm is, regardless of what people have been abusing the work. But something has reorganized around that one thing, right? What has been for you?
Well, I can tell you what, before I met you, I worked with a supervisor and actually a therapist, and I went into the world of constellation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've heard the word doodle. Okay.
Yeah, they do the constellation. I also
Oh,
have a constellation.
and was it about 2018? This he's a very solid guy, good businessman, very smart, but not well understood because he's risk tolerant. He'll take a risk, okay, but he's very growth oriented, and he's quite a serious.
Mm.
And he came up with these, literally like watching the cosmos. And in the middle of this cosmos was planet Earth. That was his company, right? And how things should be arranged around him. Okay.
Right.
And I've looked at some of the stuff coming out of MIT. Okay. Now MIT I like. Okay. You know why?
Mm.
Because they're the dumbos who got clever, right? And became this universe world. Okay. And the whole idea is that things are constantly moving. Okay. And I remember saying to him, I said, you should have one of these things on your desk. He said, why? He said, because that's moved. So how will the others move? Okay. I've never seen anything like it. Okay. But that's where those creative juices work. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually forgotten your original question, but
it's like how did your one truth as reorganized for you from that rupture that was coming, that one truth then?
Same principle.
Yeah.
That I can reorganize my thinking so quickly. Okay. I mean, even this book, as far as I'm concerned, is an algorithm.
Mm.
And there's a picture of my dog on the cover because he's such a good dog. I love him. Okay. I think he's just gone to sleep. I've just drugged the poor guy. He's old. But the idea is that there's some solidly good stuff there. Okay. It's not some profile. And it's definitely not a model. It's a narrative. It's a story with lots of questions. Brings it into practice. I haven't even tried to prove to anybody whether there's a massive return on investment here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I haven't even decided to do that. So I just wrote a section on commercial hardness.
Right.
Yeah, which is like, this is how it works and this is what it does, basically. And I thought they might as well. They even wrote a section on, this geopolitical mess. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just sort of, don't be foolish. Okay. Geopolitics, media, and the fractured landscape. So, yeah, there you go. Have a look at that. Right. See what you think about that. I didn't need permission to write it. I just wrote it.
And yet, kind of a sense of reorganizing the things and like that around that one truth or the one rupture. And you probably had like more than one, but there was like that sense of reorganizing becomes possible. It was not possible before. But then there is also, and you mentioned before, that perception of coherence, because what we are doing here is not just about, okay, you have an idea and they have like a few dots and we kind of connect. Because what we are doing is kind of you build something that is reasonable coherent to have that kind of moving along. It's not kind of a goal oriented because that's not what you are doing, but there's a certain intention. And we talk about as well like kind of that sense of self-confidence, which is not really a nice word, and I think you have a different word for that. But what we are looking here is like your own internal journey as you went through all the experience of the writing and so on. What has been for you that internal journey? What did you come out of there?
You know what? The reason I don't use confidence is because doubt creeps in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whole story of falling on your own sword.
Yeah.
So I don't go down that road anymore. Okay. So it's definitely changed that. It's just about being more self-assured. I'm
self-assured
of myself. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean I'm sure of myself. I said I'm self-assured. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the first bit of assurance is this definitely works.
Right.
Okay. I know because I've now put my finger on those dots, right? And those particular. The other thing is that it is very coherent. It follows.
Yeah.
Okay, it follows. I'm not sure everybody will want to read it. Some will probably want to bin it, as long as they pay the price. You can do whatever you like with it. It's not mine anymore. It's yours. Okay. But I've kind of got to the point. I mean, you did your dissertation as well. You know what it's like. Okay.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah. That long ago. Okay. I've done 2 dissertations now, and I've looked at them and I've said, okay, that was the part of the journey. Okay. But this now is the journey. Okay.
Right.
So I'll continue to so whenever you run your next sessions, okay, I'll be there, because I think I've done 1 or 2 iterations, 3 iterations of it, and every time I do, something else, there's new information, okay, and it's updating all the time. So just about everything, I think I would be your greatest student, Nan, because here, just about, I don't think I've missed much, to be honest. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of it, man.
Thank you, Keith. So we're coming to an end, and also maybe a quick one. I mean, did it open as well, like opportunities in terms of clients? It's more about attracting to you. What is now next for you? What do you perceive?
Well, you know what, I said to you earlier, I'm not great with doing presentations and USPs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I have been approached. I have long-term projects, right? I call them long-range products. Okay. What is this? Long horizon.
Okay.
I'm building what they call long horizon alliances. Okay. So I'm a lot more relaxed, to be honest. Okay, about what walks in the door. Okay. So stop looking for it. Okay. So what it does is it's brought a sense of calm. Okay?
Right.
And I know that people are looking at it. Okay. And I'm getting some reactions, right, from, believe it or not, places like South Africa. Okay. I got a huge reaction from some guy in South Africa. Okay, when he read one of my articles. I don't know where it's going to go, but that's the opportunity. I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, I hope that I'm going to leave Elon Musk in my dust." Okay, no, that's not an aspiration that I have. Okay, but it does give me a sense of fulfillment. And when I work with you and your group, and I work with me and my group, and I work with my clients and those groups, it's a lot more fun. Are you with me? And their businesses are growing. So, I mean, do I need new clients? No, not really. Okay. Because if I look after the clients that I've got, there's some big money in there, right? That's German stuff. But if the right person, if somebody walks and says, "Oh, it's a good book," okay, he's going to have to come into the boardroom, okay, take his tie and his jacket, right, and sit down, have a cup of tea and some sandwiches with me, and tell me about this great book that was written by a guy. And I, of course, am going to be that guy, and I'm going to listen to him and say, "But you've got a great story too. So tell me what your story is," and maybe build a new relationship there. Yeah. I ain't doing this other stuff anymore. Yeah. So if somebody wants to come and wants to have a chat, my email is actually in the book as well.
Yes, and I'll be sending as well on the article, even your LinkedIn, also on the Substack, and I'll put all the contacts in there. And final words on your side, Keith. What do you wanted to share, maybe to people and even to the readers?
Yeah, a real thanks to you. I mean, you've been your program has been cathartic, right? It really has lifted my spirits.
Thank you, and it's been great as well. You've been like probably, if not the first really person leader, old times, like back 3 years ago when we started this together, like the journey of uncertainty.
Honestly, it's been. I know that I know. Let's just say, right? I know the room. Okay.
Yes, there's a room there as well, definitely.
Yeah, I know the room, and I can see. I can see. I don't know what you want from it, but whatever you want from it, you just ask me. I know that my particular workshop series goes from 10 to 12 people to
Mm,
nothing.
mm.
And today somebody walked in and said, "Oh, red flag, right?" And hey, I ain't doing this corporate klutzy stuff. Okay, yeah, I ain't doing this, and very very crisp looking person, very well dressed, all very proper, sitting amongst a bunch of muck farmers like us, just like
Right.
want to roll our sleeves up and do the stuff. So that's kind of where I am. But I must thank you, and I hope that you're going to run it again soon.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you, Keith. It's been great, and I'll be obviously writing an article around. But most importantly, also having here the link for the Amazon the book for whoever wants to buy from Keith, and also in contact with him. He also like on the Substack. He also release tons of material in there, so anyone wants to read from Keith, he's also on the LinkedIn. More present starting now on the Substack. But yes, thank you very much to everybody for being here as well. And thank you, Abigail, and thank you, Buck has been here. And have a great day. Oh, Bobby
Yes,
as well. That's fine. All right.
yes. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Keith, for being here. Cheers.
Switch this thing off. I don't know how to switch it off.
I will do it now. I'll do it. All right. Bye bye.